Where did the second batch of fucking krill come from? Make it make fucking sense. Make it make sense. Easy. I literally shot them to disperse and they won't fucking disperse. This shit is fucking trash. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to beat this. Yeah, I don't think I can do it. Dom wasn't a part of this. I feel like it'd be so much fucking easier. That man is fucking inbred. Well, there goes an hour of my life I can't get back. If you had to carve a Mount Rushmore of Xbox 360 games, there's no question that Gears of War would be right up there, front and center, right alongside Halo, Skyrim, and Call of Duty. These weren't just hits, they were cultural moments that defined an entire era of gaming. Gears of War in particular wasn't just another third-person shooter. It brought cinematic action, brutal gameplay, and a world so gritty it practically bled out of your screen. This was the game that made cover-based shooting feel so cool. It set a new bar, not just for Xbox, but for action games in general. And now, I want to go back and experience the entire Gears of War saga from the beginning. Whether you're a long-time COG soldier, or someone who's missed it back in the day, I'm kicking off a full series replay, starting right here with the original Gears of War on the Xbox 360. So let's rev up those chainsaws and dig into the game that started it all. When Gears of War dropped back in 2006, it was a benchmark title for the Xbox 360 that redefined the genre. From its blend of intense cover-based combat, cinematic presentation, and a grim sci-fi setting that helped shape the direction of modern shooters. In this video, I'll be diving deep into what made the original Gears so impactful, breaking down each act of the campaign, and seeing how it all holds up nearly 2 decades later. And if you have no idea what Gears is about, set on the war-torn planet of Sierra, humanity is on the brink of extinction following an invasion by the monstrous Locust Horde, creatures that emerge from the underground on Emergence Day. You play as Marcus Phoenix, a disgraced former soldier, freed from the prison to rejoin Delta Squad and help turn the tide of war. It's a story of camaraderie, desperation, and brute survival, with just enough mystery to keep things moving. But before diving too deep into the lore and story, let's dig into what really made Gears a game changer, the gameplay. Because Gears of War didn't just enter the arena guns blazing, it redefined how shooters played. Before Gears, a lot of third-person shooters felt floaty, but Gears of War brought weight. Every step Marcus took felt like it had gravity behind it, and every shot felt dangerous. This was the game that basically invented the modern cover shooter style. No more bunny hopping around like you're in an FPS arena. Here, you're sticking to walls, blind firing around corners, and charging forward with a brutal boots on the ground energy. And I absolutely love the iconic roadie run, with the shaky cam behind your back. It doesn't just look cinematic, it feels intense and immersive, like a soldier scrambling for cover or charging headfirst into a firefight. And then there's the active reload system, a genius little mechanic that turned reloading into a high-stakes minigame. If you nail the timing, you reload your clip 5 times faster, and if you miss it, you end up having your gun jam. It's a small detail, but it adds tension to every single encounter. There was too many countless times that my nerves would be so caught up in the moment that I would miss the timing of the reload, but even in those moments of failure, I loved the adrenaline of recovering in the heat of the action. Weapons just felt incredible across the board. The Lancer with its chainsaw bayonet is such an iconic primary, with peak weapon design work. The Gnasher is arguably my favorite shotgun of all time with how devastating it is in close quarters. And weapons like the Torque Bow and Hammer of Dawn just felt like you were calling in the wrath of the gods. The squad combat can be a mixed bag of experiences though. Sometimes your AI buddies are sharpshooting legends. Other times, they're just standing in the corridor staring at a wall or walking straight into death's arms. But the banner between the squad mates, the gritty camaraderie, that's where Gears really shines. You feel like you're part of a hardened war unit, not just a lone wolf mowing down enemies. Bottom line, even today, the combat is still hitting hard, it's clunky, it's brutal, and it's uniquely satisfying. Act 1 Ashes kicks off with Marcus's release from the prison by his friend Dom, and right from the start, we're thrown straight into the chaos. The intro serves as both a tutorial and a tone setter, showcasing the iconic Lancer chainsaw rifle, cover system, and intense enemy encounters. You navigate through a destroyed city and regroup with Delta Squad, setting up the game's boots-on-the-ground war drama. This act really hammers home the grim, industrial tone Gears would become known for. The tension is immediate, and the locusts feel like a true threat. Then Act 2 Nightfall hits. Delta Squad enters darker territory, literally. Nightfall's missions add tension and introduce the Krill, deadly bat-like creatures that attack you the moment you step into the dark, forcing you to stay in the light. One of the standout moments to me involves using a light to guide a vehicle through the infested streets. The Krill's mechanics feel like a survival horror twist and help keep the pacing varied. It also subtly shows how outmatched humanity really is. At first, I was really against how quick and easy the Krill would come to kill you if you stepped out of the light, but after completing and reflecting on the game, I can really respect and enjoy the intense change of pace and challenge it brought to Gears, and I hope to see it reappear in the future titles. And just when you think things couldn't get any darker, both literally and thematically, Act 3 Belly of the Beast takes you even deeper. Gone are the flickering streetlights and narrow escapes from the Krill. Now you're heading straight into the Locust stronghold itself. You venture into a locust-infested factory and underground tunnels. This is where Gears leans into its grotesque and alien world building. It's also where you see more of Marcus's leadership and the squad dynamic evolve. Combat here ramps up, introducing tougher enemies and more intense battles. You really start to feel like you're getting deeper into the heart of the enemy territory. And after crawling through the Locust's nightmare factory and barely making it out alive, Act 4, The Long Road Home, feels like a breath of fresh air. Until you realize the surface isn't very much better. You're no longer in alien tunnels, but the world up top has been reduced to smoldering ruins. There's this haunting contrast between the familiar and the destroyed, especially when you return to Marcus's childhood home at the Phoenix Estate. You can really feel how personal this war has become, and while the story's building momentum, the gameplay tightens too, with urban firefights that feel desperate, gritty, and claustrophobic. You fight your way through war-torn cities while prepping the Resonator, a device meant to map the Locust tunnels and turn the tide of war until you reach the Phoenix Estates. The level design here offers a nice mix of close quarters indoor fights and wide open street shootouts. The story starts pushing towards urgency here. I really dug the final standoff section in this act. However, for some reason the boomers just kept destroying me and having to make me restart so far back from the previous checkpoint. And finally, we have arrived at Act 5, Desperation, and man, the title doesn't lie. The moment this act starts, the game is sprinting towards the finish line with all guns blazing. The pacing becomes relentless. The final act throws everything at you. Bigger enemies, higher stakes, and a climactic train sequence. The game ends with a boss fight against General Rom, a towering Locust leader who almost feels invincible. It's been a long time since I've encountered such a challenging boss fight. I tried for over an hour to wrap my head around beating Rom and his cruel antics, even pulling up tutorial videos midstream to try to figure out what it was going to take to beat him, only to get discouraged that people could cheese him in under 2 minutes. I inevitably end up rage quitting after an hour of getting demolished, but once I regained my composure, I hopped back on and managed to get it on my 3rd attempt. But Rom's fight was exactly what the game needed at the end of its story. Something that could really display that the Locusts weren't anything to mess around with, and a hard-fought victory worth celebrating. Let's not forget how good Gears of War looked when it dropped. In 2006, this game was and still is a visual powerhouse. Powered by Unreal Engine 3, it introduced a generation of gamers to the now iconic next-gen grittiness. Hulking characters, ruined cities, dense fog, and the overall color palette and design reflected a world that was literally crumbling under the weight of war. Act 2 with its night missions and the Krill lurking in the shadows is a perfect example. The lighting here wasn't just eye candy, it was gameplay critical. Stay in the light or die. It makes the world feel alive, dangerous, and fully realized. And the enemy designs? The Locusts aren't just cannon fodder. They look monstrous, with thick armor, glowing eyes, and snarling faces. You really start to believe that these things came from the darkest depths of the planet. But what really ties it all together was the sound design. The echoing reload clicks, the deep bass of explosions, the distant roar of incoming enemies, it's all engineered to keep your blood pumping. Even today, Gears still oozes atmosphere. It's industrial, oppressive, and unforgettable. You don't just play Gears of War, you feel its impact years later. This game didn't just make noise, it echoed. What started as a bold new IP quickly became one of the pillars holding up the entire Xbox 360 legacy. It had a short but punchy 6 to 8 hour campaign, but the replay value was so strong. You had co-op play either local or online, which was a huge game changer for the time. Playing through the campaign with a friend made it 10 times better. And though it was nothing huge, the choosing path feature gives a small boost of replayability to re-experience parts from missions from different points of view. There are also collectible cog tags to find scattered all over each act, and brutal difficulty modes like Insane truly lived up to their name. And while the original game's story wasn't super deep, it laid the groundwork for what would become a surprisingly rich lore in the sequels. This was just a starting point for the series, and what a starting point it was. Gears of War isn't just a product of its time, it's a statement. A statement that action games could be gritty, grounded, and visceral. That they could be cinematic without losing their bite, and the great mechanics like active reloads and cover-based shooting could completely reshape an entire genre. Is it perfect? No. The movement can feel stiff at times, the AI isn't always the sharpest, and yeah, the campaign ends a bit sooner than you like, but the impact is undeniable. This game defined what it meant to be next-gen in 2006, and all these years later, it still holds up as a must-play for anyone curious about where modern shooters came from. The final score I'm going to give this game is an 8.5 out of 10. Whether you're revisiting it through backward compatibility or playing the Ultimate Edition, Gears of War is still essential gaming history, and for me, it's only the beginning. Because this is just part 1 of my full Gears of War replay journey, and I'll be tackling each game in this series right here on Retro Revisit. And if you're interested in watching me crash out live, subscribe and keep an eye out for when I go live and play through the entire series. So if you got memories of Gears, let me know down in the comments. What was your favorite moment from the original? Was it the first time chainsawing a Locust, the showdown with Rom, or that terrifying walk in the dark with the Krill? And if you're enjoying the series, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and gear up because we still got a long road ahead. This has been another episode of Retro Revisit, and I'll see you in the next one.